Hello, I'm Karma Kitaj. I'm your host for A Livelihood, New Adventures as We Age. Today I'm going to introduce you to Barbara Babkirk, and she is a friend from the Life Planning Network, which we might hear about a little bit today. And Barbara has been a career counselor, and we're going to hear a little bit more about what she's doing in addition to her career counseling. So I mentioned that you and I know one another through a very vibrant organization called the Life Planning Network, which is composed of a lot of different kinds of professionals that provide services for people, I guess we'd say, over age 50, right?
Yes.
And you provide services to people, I guess, of all different ages as a career counselor. Correct.
Actually, I focus on people in the second half of life, so people who are 45 and older, essentially, work with them to navigate life transitions, particularly as they pertain to work in the world. In preparation for this show, I was thinking about my own journey and how my work has fit into my second half of life story. So one of the things I would like to share is what happened when I started to enter into the second half of life. Daughter was going off to college, had the empty nest syndrome, started to feel a little empty.
Yeah.
And from that place, after I sat with it for a while, with the help of my husband, I discovered that what I really wanted to do, in addition to my private practice as a career counselor, is lead women's groups in the south of France. There's some parallel themes for people in the second half of life, because I realized unwittingly that this concept of women's retreats in France particularly was an integration of many parts of myself and my history.
So why don't you tell us about what your first retreats were like, how it all came about?
Well, the very first retreat was in 1999, and traveled to the south of France where we have friends. We made these wonderful friends through travel, and they own a villa. And we decided, my husband and I decided to rent the villa and try and fill it with women on this retreat. And he volunteered. He's an educator by profession, but a fabulous cook, and he said, well, I'll cook meals for you. So, couldn't turn that one down.
What could be better?
So things really fell into place.
Yeah. I think you told me that you kind of segued into doing a more spiritual kind of retreat, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so back then, starting in 99, was it more sort of just a travel tourist atmosphere?
I really did want to attract women in transition. So it was not necessarily attracting women who were in career transition, which is the focus of my work. A couple of times we had women whose spouses had died, and they wanted to be able to travel alone, and this was a good way to try and practice that. Ended after 9 retreats, took a break, and last year I decided to go on a spiritual retreat of my own with a colleague. We went to Paris and then to the village of Chartres, which is 15 minutes from Paris by train, where there's a wonderful labyrinth. Chartres Cathedral is known around the world as a pilgrimage site. It is affiliated with the Catholic Church, but people from many different spiritual disciplines go there.
Yeah.
And the labyrinth is located in the nave of the church, 42 feet in diameter, built in the 12th century. It's a fabulous meditative tool. St. Augustine once said, it is solved by walking. So to walk the labyrinth is to engage in a way to meditate and reflect on life.
So when you take a group over, say, as you did to France this last time, so what do you do about bringing people into the labyrinth? Do you give them some orientation, or how do you do it?
So Susanna, who was my colleague, Susanna and I decided after our personal pilgrimage to Paris and Chartres last year that we really wanted to share this experience with women. So we introduced a new retreat, one that would have people spending 2 days in Paris, and we hired a guide to bring us to different sites in Paris that focused on the importance of the feminine. And that did include a couple of churches, but it was not only church-oriented. And we spent 2 days in Paris. We did very fun things because we wanted the focus to be on the concept of beauty, heart, and spirit, thinking that if there's a combination of those three elements, it can open a person to what it is they need to know. So 2 days in Paris, then hopped a train to Chartres and spent 4 nights there. And those days really were leading up to walking the labyrinth on the next to the last day. So we discussed the concept of the labyrinth, the meaning of the labyrinth. We hired a guide who has expertise in Chartres and also of the labyrinth, and just encourage them to have their own way to walk it. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
And so I think that you just went to Paris. You just had a retreat a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago in May, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was really your first particularly spiritual retreat then, right?
Yes, we named it that way. We really introduced this retreat as really appropriate for spiritual seekers, people who engaged in some of the larger questions in life, questions that really relate to the second half of life. You know, the first half of life is often about who am I supposed to be, according to mom and dad, the church, my teachers, my community. And we go about our lives according to those directives. And then along comes the second half of life, and those directives don't hold as much weight anymore. And we're looking, seeking for some new answers.
So you spent quite a bit of time in Chartres and walking the labyrinth, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you also have discussion times built in?
It's interesting because Susanna and I had a very mapped out program for the week. What we would do every day, I can't say it was every minute, but it was certainly every few hours. We had a program. We're both facilitators and have presented programs many, many times. And interestingly enough, when we got to Chartres, we would check in with people every day, let them know what we had in mind, and every day there were major changes to the program. We were committed to being flexible and trying to address the needs of the people who came on the retreat. And so as the days unfolded, people had different needs.
So given that this is your first of this kind of a workshop or retreat, are you going to continue to do it now in the next years, do you think?
Yes, definitely. Interestingly enough, when Susanna and I went to Paris and Chartres last year, we said, it's possible that we'll do a retreat together, but we had made no commitment. And then a month after it became clear to both of us, we almost said it at the same time, let's talk about doing this. This year, it didn't take a month. We were flying home, and we both turned to each other and said, are you interested in doing this again? And we both said yes.
Well, this has been really lovely. We're going to have to stop. And perhaps some people who watch this show will be interested and intrigued to join you next time. Next May, right? When you're
Next
going.
May. I would
What are the
invite
dates again?
the 27th to the 2nd of June. And I invite anyone with questions to just email me. Happy to get back to them.
Well, good.